Zipform transactions. Okay. I'm going to ask you some questions. I've told you that 3-4 weeks ago, start studying the purchase contract. Diana has written a lot of offers, so Diana is much more comfortable with this. But I'm going to ask you a question. Let's say this is a purchase price of $800,000. All right. First of all, give me a name of a company. Tell me what is going to go in here. Let's say it's Coldwell Banker. We're going to write Coldwell Banker. Is the Coldwell Banker the listing agent or the buyer's agent? If I take this out, what is it going to be? I want participation on this.
That's the listing.
Okay.
Seller.
So you will check mark the seller. Do not leave these things blank, guys. It's important. Let's say you don't have their license number should be on the MLS. When you're getting the MLS printout, it's there. So make sure that you put this license number. You have Keller Williams, Encino, Sherman Oaks. You will put their license number. From the drop-down menu, there is this one. You will put it there. It comes to mine, yours. You'll put it there. The buyer. What about if I was the listing agent and you were the buyer's agent? What will go here?
Same, Keller Williams and Encino.
Okay. Yeah, so what are we? Are we the seller, both the seller and buyer? What are we?
Both buyer and seller.
Because now we have become the same agency. Remember, we are sub-agents of the company. All right. So, potentially competing buyers and sellers. The parties each acknowledge receipt of representation of more than one buyer and seller. You know that form which is attached to the purchase contract? It is so important that you provide that to the buyers and explain to them why is it, because we are sub-agents, therefore there might be another agent from our office who has written an offer on this property. So we will be dual agent and the possible representation of more than one buyer and seller has to be there. I am sure the Mitra has covered all these things in the purchase contract. If you have forgotten it, please, please, please go back to that class or look at the recording. CR is coming up with a new, new purchase contract. And if you go to CAR, you will see that they have classes. So sign up for these classes and be familiar. As of January 1st, you're going to go ahead and use those purchase contracts. But the foundation, I bet it's similar to this, okay? So now let me ask you this. Initial deposit. Purchase price is $800,000. What goes here? What number?
24.
Which is what?
30%.
Okay. So 24,000 is the initial. What does it say in here? Number one, buyer direct deposit. Buyer shall deliver deposit directly to escrow holder by electronic funds transfer. Cashier check, personal check, and other. Within 3 business days of acceptance. So when you are talking to your buyer, very important that you explain to them this rule, that if 3 days passes and they have not wired their deposit to the escrow company, they basically have no contract. Seller can very easily cancel. Seller has every right to cancel the contract because by contract, it says within 3 business days. I think a lot of time agents write this thing, but they don't understand the fundamentals of contract. A written contract, every word in that contract is a term that has to be followed to the T. I mean, you need to understand the importance of these days when you're writing it. So you need to explain that to your buyers. escrow has been opened. They haven't sent in the second day. First day, escrow will send a wiring instruction to the buyer. Buyer from that day on should make the effort to go to the bank before 11 o'clock so the wire can go to escrow the same day or maximum the next day, okay? I will have the escrow company come and talk to us next week for 15, 20 minutes because they're busy, but they will explain escrow to you. So you will understand what are the steps and what are the responsibilities of an escrow company in this. You don't need to write anything in here because it's already says the first off, unless the buyer wants to take a cashier's check. Personal check, I will not take it. If buyer asks me that they want to take personal check, I will say no, it has to be cashier's check or wire deposit because personal check they can deliver. I don't know if there is money in that account. We've been involved in a situation when the deposit has gone in a personal check and there's nothing in that account. So wire or cashier's check, and you can call the escrow company and ask them, are they okay with cashier's check? Most of the time they are. Okay, so now in here, initial deposit, now we come to, if it's an all cash offer, what are you going to do?
There will not be
Just mark all cash offer.
Right.
No, but what are you putting in this form?
all cash offer. The C.
Right, Diana, you've done this.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say there is no all cash offer. Let's say there is a loan. And when, by the way, when it says there is an all cash offer and no loan, the offer is not contingent on buyer obtaining a loan. Written verification of sufficient funds to close this transaction is attached to this offer. So make sure that when an investor comes to you and says, oh, I'm going to write all cash offers and etc., you are the agent. You need to ask them at that time, I need to have a bank statement or something showing that this money is in an account, a local account in United States, and it's not coming from abroad. You need to see that statement before you write the offer. Why? Because their intention might be that they're going to get hard money loan to cover the all cash. So even though they're writing an all cash offer, they really don't have that money yet. And when it's a hard money loan, even though they have no contingency, but is there a possibility that their hard money loan doesn't go through? Of course there is. So you need to know all the facts about your buyer's financial situation so you can explain, first of all, you know it. And if you're the listing agent, you need to ask for these things. What about if there is a loan? I have read it. So tell me, what will be the amount here? Let's say it's an 80%, 20% down payment.
And it's 800,000.
160,000.
No. $160,000 is the down payment.
Yeah. Oh, the rest?
That's the loan. What is the loan amount, guys?
136,
How much?
136.
No.
So it's eight. So the price of the property is 800,000. 3% of that is 24,
Okay.
right? The deposit. And so they're putting down 20%.
They're putting down 20%.
So 20% of that is 160
Okay.
Minus 24,000.
minus
I am talking about
24,000.
the loan, guys. Listen to
Oh,
me. I'm talking about the loan. How much is the loan amount?
got it.
The
Seven
loan
forty.
amount is 160, 20%
It is
of
not.
800.
160 is the
No,
down
no,
payment.
740.
How much?
740.
Well, how much is that number? I'm asking for a number.
640.
640. Calculate, guys. Be
Oh yeah, 640.
okay. So don't mix the down payment with this. This is 80%.
Mm.
What about if it was a 10% down payment? What would be the amount here?
710.
I don't know. I'm listening to you guys.
720.
Yeah.
Arman is saying it's 710. Those are saying 720.
We're doing,
I'm saying if it was a 10% down on an $800,000 loan.
How much is the loan?
800.
You-
So 800 minus
50%.
80.
Huh?
800 minus 80.
I said, what if the loan is, the down payment is 10%? How much is the loan?
720.
Yeah, 720.
Yeah, 720.
800 minus times 90%, 720. $720,000, right? See how important it is for you guys to know these things? Because imagine if you're writing this offer in front of a client. Not that you are at this time and age, you're writing it behind the scene, but understand the concept. What will you write in here? Let's say the loans right now are 2.875. What is the purpose of this paragraph in here? This loan shall be at a fixed rate not to exceed. What is the purpose of this paragraph?
So
To
the
protect-
buyer, yeah, to protect buyer.
Okay, so what will you write there? If the interest rate is 2.875, what interest rate will you write there?
Not to exceed 1 point extra. What did you say?
I would go but half a point
Uh-huh.
or 1% higher, and I would write 3.5%.
Hmm.
Why? Because if all of the sudden interest rate jumped to 4%, my client has a way out. Like you guys said, you are protecting the buyer. Okay? And
So
I would
you're-
always say loans not to be more than 1%.
Mhm.
Most of the time there is no loan, but if there is, you will explain to your buyer that lenders usually charge a point on the loan, and each point is 1% of the loan amount. So if it's $800,000 or $720,000 loan, 1.1% is $7,200 fee, which will be added to will be part of their closing costs. And you will have to ask the lender, is there a point that you're charging the buyer? So you know, and the buyer should know, and you will explain it to your buyers that when you're talking to the lender, ask them, are they being charged a point? Because they need to know these numbers in order for them to know how much extra money other than this down payment do they need to bring to the table as part of their down payment, because this is going to be part of the cash required for their closing cost, part of escrow fees.
Got it. So your rule of thumb is 1%.
Half to 1%. Yeah, for this is 1 point, here is 3.5.
Right. So regarding that fixed rate, the rule of thumb for you, it's because I took the Demetrius class and her example was 4%. So it really depends on where the rate is, and then just go 0.5 or 1% max.
I will go 0.5 or 1% above that. Okay. Now here, let's say the asked seller shall pay $5,000 toward buyer's closing costs. Those are where you will put all the terms that you want for the seller to pay. If there is no payment, then nothing will be here. Okay? Are we all done on this page? You're all okay? Answer yes, no, maybe.
But the 1 point is for the lender.
Yes. But that's something that the buyer has to pay,
Yes.
and that will be part of closing costs. Anything else, guys? Anything that we have not covered here? Okay, I'm assuming that it is. So here we go to verification of down payment. You see where we've checkmark verification attached?
Mhm.
That's why I'm asking, you need to know whoever your buyer is, you as agent has the responsibility of asking for this verification of funds. If your buyers turn around and tell you that, oh, we will do it later. No, you are not going to do later. I'm not going to write an offer for a buyer who does not prove that, who doesn't show me that he has the proof of fund to buy. I'm not going to waste my time, their time, or the seller's time. Okay. Let me just make this like this. You guys are okay that I don't show your faces in here because it's more clear. Okay,
Yeah.
appraisal, contingency, and removal. This agreement is or is not
Mhm.
contingent upon written appraisal of the property. So one of you please tell me, if it is not contingent, what will you do? What form will you attach to this purchase contract?
The appraisal, contingency,
I'm sorry?
appraisal, contingency, and for the inspection.
Why would you put the
Contingency.
inspection? Let's just focus on the appraisal for now. Did you say you are going to attach contingency removal for appraisal?
Yes, when there is
Okay.
no contingency, when we mark this box, we have to add the appraisal contingency, means all cash.
Okay. So basically, if there is no appraisal contingency, you have to check mark this box
Mhm.
and then add removal of appraisal contingency removal number 1, attached to this offer, have buyer sign and send it with this offer. Okay. If there
Okay.
is an agreement, if there is an appraisal agreement, the form calls for 17 days. What about, have you spoken to the lender to see what is the shortest amount of time that they can provide an appraisal? Do you think it's a good thing to do?
Yes.
Okay. So what about if the lender tells you that they can do the appraisal in 14 days? What will
And you would
do?
write it there. You would write, instead of 17, you would write 14.
Correct. Loan application. Within 3 days after acceptance, buyer shall deliver to seller a letter from buyer's lender or loan broker stating that based on review of buyer written application and credit report, buyer is pre-qualified or pre-approved for any new loan specified in paragraph 3D. Now, if you have something, you will say letter attached. Would you ever take a client, you met with the buyer tells you that, you ask them if they're pre-approved, and they say, oh yes, we have. And you say, okay, who is your lender? Can I have a letter or copy of that pre-approval letter? And the buyer said, oh, don't worry about it. I'll give it to you. I have that. What would you do as an agent?
You insist that you like to see it because you need to attach it to, if they ever decide to submit an offer, then you need to attach that letter, right?
Correct. Correct. And you will also ask them, call the lender, and you ask the lender, have you received a full application from this buyer? Have you done a credit check? Have you verified the source of down payment? And their, debt to income ratio.
Hmm.
We all know there are lenders, friends who will just write an approval letter without having any of those things. And you don't know that lender. It might be just a small one-man show who's doing a great job, or it's a small one-man show who doesn't do a great job. You just want to make sure that you're working with a legit buyer, able buyer financially, who can purchase this property. Your job is to protect them and, your time, their time, and the seller's time.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Before when I started,
I didn't pay attention between
pre-qualified
qualify
and
and
pre-approved.
pre-approved.
But lately, I'm always asking
Asking
for
for
pre-approval
pre-approval instead of pre-qualified.
Okay, so the difference between pre-approval and pre-qualified is this. With pre-qualified, the lender is just asking, how much is your income? How much debt do you have? Are you working? Where are you working? How much was your tax returns last year? It does not mean that they have received an application, that they have reviewed their last 2 years' tax returns. They have not pulled a credit report on this borrower. They haven't done most of these things. So it's a pre-qualified. It really means nothing if you ask me. If with my buyers, I know that the lender that I work with, or the 2 or 3 lenders that I work with, not that I'm affiliated with them, but by experience, I've learned that those are all good lenders. And if they say this buyer is approved, I have no problem. But I ask them for a DU approval, meaning that the borrower has to fill in an application, their credit has to be run, the verification of down payment should be checked, everything has to be checked except title, except verification of employment. But DU approval, it is gone under underwriting. That's the kind of approval I'm looking for, and that's the kind of approval most of the listing agents are asking nowadays. Okay? Does that?
You said BU as in buyer underwriting?
DU.
DU.
Yeah.
What does that stand for?
Desk
DU.
underwriting, I believe.
DU underwriting?
Well, just DU is desk underwriting. That
Oh,
means that the
desk
lender,
underwriting. Okay.
yeah, the lender will just put in all the information into their computer, into the software that they have with the lender, the wholesaler, or the bank that they're working with, whatever. And the system will say how much loan they're approved with and what are, whether these documents that they have been provided are sufficient or not for that. Okay. Loan contingency removal. Within 21 days after acceptance, buyer shall, as specified in paragraph 14 in writing, remove the loan contingency or cancel this agreement. If there's an appraisal contingency, removal of the loan contingency shall not be deemed removal of the appraisal contingency. So as a listing agent, I know most of the offers which are coming in nowadays have 14, 15-day loan contingency removal. I also know that a lot of buyers, agent, will just write 12 or 14 days, but then they will come back and ask for an extension. So in my opinion, what I will recommend is when you're talking to the lender before writing this offer, you ask them, how many days do you think realistically you need in order for this loan contingency to be removed? And if most of the lenders will tell you that they need at least 17 days or the 21 days. Now, mind you, if you have only a pre-qualification letter, that means that from this point on, the buyer has to submit an application, the tax returns and all this. And that's why you're looking for a DU approval, because that means the lender has all of those things. And based on that, it can say 17 days is okay. So talk to your lender and see what number you should put here. If he says I need 21 days, then you know what? Then you put 21 days.
When you shorten the loan contingency and shorten the inspection days, do you also shorten the escrow days from 30 to?
Escrow date has nothing to do with this because you're just removing the loan contingency. You're not closing escrow on that date. So you will say, okay, let's say you have 30 days escrow. The loan contingency is removed within 14 days or 17 days or 21 days. From that day moment on, you still need at least another 7 days before you can close escrow, because the escrow or the lender has to send the disclosures, closing disclosures to the buyer. They need 3 days for buyer. The law requires the buyer to have it for 3 days. Then the buyer will sign it. That will go back to the lender. The lender will order the loan documents. Loan documents may take 24 hours or 48 hours to be prepared by the lender, and it will go to the escrow. Once the escrow receives it, they will look at all the numbers and everything, and that's when they will call the buyer and say, hey, the loan documents are in. This is how much you need to bring in addition to your down payment, with all the expenses, which are the title fee, escrow fee, lender fee, notary fee, prorations, and all these things. So you have to come in, make an appointment, come in, sign the loan documents. And that's what the buyer will do. The buyer will go to the escrow and sign the loan documents. Then the loan documents will go back to the lender. The lender will review it. And then within 24 hours, they will say, or 48 hours, they will fund the money. When we say fund the money, that means the money will go from the lender to the title company, and the escrow has the deposit by then and all the closing costs. And then the next day, the title company will actually go to the county recorder's office and record it. So this whole process can take up to 7 days. Okay. So loan contingency doesn't mean close of escrow. But if you have 30 days escrow, 21 days plus 7 days is going to be your 30 days. 14 days plus, let's say, 7 days is going to be what? 14, 6, 21 days. If you want to close escrow and seller is ready to close escrow before that, hey, that's fine. But maybe the seller doesn't want to close before 30 days because they have to move.
Right. Okay.
So that's the whole part. If the buyer is going to get a loan, but they're so confident that their loan will go through, then the buyer may ask you, remove my loan contingency. I have a loan, but I don't have a loan contingency. Okay? And then you will do contingency removal for the loan, and you will attach to this document. The danger with this is, and you have to explain it to your buyer, that when you do a non-loan contingency, now you only have 2 ways to get out of this transaction. One is through your inspection, and if the house doesn't appraise, if you have the appraisal contingency check mark. If you have removed both appraisal and the loan contingency, and you have done the inspection and everything is okay, if you removed your inspection contingency and you have received your transfer disclosures and all these things, your deposit is in jeopardy. So when you are doing a buyer consultation, it's important to understand every sentence in this purchase contract. So based on that, you can explain it to your buyers. because at the end of the day, it's their deposit which is going to be in jeopardy. Make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
You would also click on no loan contingency when it's a cash offer also.
Well, if you do an all cash offer in here,
Mhm.
where is it? If you say all cash offer, look, everything else is
Disappears,
taken
right?
down. And you won't be able, no matter how much you try to put a check mark in it,
Oh, got it.
it will
won't.
not happen.
Got it. Okay. So there's no need to click on that also. Okay.
No, it will not, the system will not allow it.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, so read this part. I'm not going to go through it, but read and understand so that you can explain it to your buyers. What about if the buyer has to sell their house in order to purchase this property?
Mhm.
Then you will put, first the option is the agreement, disagreement, and buyer's ability to obtain financing are not contingent. So in the absence, if this is not check marked, that
Mhm.
means paragraph 4A applies, that there is no
Okay.
house that the buyer has to sell. But if you check mark this, then it says disagreement and buyer's ability to obtain financing are contingent upon the sale of property owned by buyer as specified in the attached addendum, which is called COP. So right now I'm going to write two forms, right? You have COP and you have contingency removal forms
Mhm.
Mhm.
that you have to use. So you need to go and you need to learn what COP form looks like, what COP form is asking, so you will be comfortable in case you meet a buyer who has to sell their property. I'm not going to go through that, but you need, it's your job to understand and learn that form, okay? Because most probably by the time you're done with this, I am going to ask you about these forms. And at that time, you have no reason, no excuse for not being way familiar with these forms, okay? Promised?
Yes.
Committed?
Yes.
Okay. So here are certain things. If you have a COP, then the system, as soon as you check mark this, system automatically will bring COP as part of this purchase contract. Here are all the other things. If you have a property which is a septic tank, very important. If you are selling properties in Sunland, Tahanga, or even in La Cañada or some other areas, there are septic tanks instead of sewer lines. Very important that when you're reading the MLS to see if the property is on septic or is it on sewer. If it is on septic, definitely you need to mark this. And it will say form septic inspection, well inspection is successfully added.
Mhm.
I am bringing this to your attention that if you are in Santa Clarita area, if you are, like I said, Sunland, Tahanga, La Cañada, and if there is septic, you need to have the septic inspection as part of the inspection and be familiar with that form. And usually I will put it on the seller to provide me with clearance on septic tank, because that can be anywhere about $700-800. They have to come in, they have to empty the septic tank, and then they put a camera in there to see if there are any cracks or anything. And if there are any cracks and the septic tank has to be taken out and be replaced, that can be thousands of dollars. And if you are not address that in your purchase contract, guess what? The deal can fall apart. So reading the MLS as a buyer's agent is very important. And if you are the listing agent and you're going on a listing, you need to ask, one of the questions is, are you on sewer or are you on septic? Even though you make note that it is on sewer, ask the question. Never ever assume things when it comes to a contract. Okay? You remember, and then all those things, you will just add whatever is required. Other terms, seller to provide buyer with TDS and SPQ within 5 days of acceptance. I'm sure by now you all know what TDS stands for, right? What does TDS stand for? Transfer
The
disclosure.
transfer disclosure.
What does SPQ stand for?
Seller property questionnaire.
Yes. By now you need to know all these forms, guys. And when we go to the reports and disclosures, we will talk about the importance of these forms. The only reason that I have said we need 5 days is because I said if we are doing inspection in 7 days, why did I tell you to put 2 days before that?
So before you're doing inspection, you have everything, you know what's going on with the property.
Yes. And you can show that to your inspector, and if there are areas of concern, to ask the inspector to pay more attention to the area. And you don't want to get the TDS 10 days later after you have removed your inspection contingency, just to find out, oh, there was a leak somewhere in the house. And now you may want to go back and check to see if it's still there or not. And if the listing agent doesn't provide it to you, you need to explain to them, why do you want that? And the strong listing agent will understand. Hopefully, a good listing agent will have all these disclosures ready by the time the property goes on the market. Make that a habit that when you become a listing agent, you hire the transaction coordinator immediately. You send the listing agreement to the TC and you ask them to please send all the disclosures to the seller and have them complete and sign. And if you have to sit down with your sellers to go over these disclosures, you need to be very familiar with this TDS and SPQ and other thing so that you can explain to them correctly. You can't touch the form, but you can explain to them why is it important that they put everything. We'll go over this later. But if there is a class on TDS and SPQ, please attend. All right? How much time do we have? 10:20. We have 10 more minutes. Allocation of costs. This is where I see a lot of people leave things vacant. Seller shall pay for the natural hazard disclosure report, including tax or environmental. Prepared by, you can either say Premier NHD or seller's choice. Okay? Because we can't dictate who they can use, but if we know a company that they have good track record, why not put it there? And if the listing agent has their company, so be it. So buyers shall pay for the inspection report, including sewer line inspection. At this point, when buyer is doing inspection, they can do sewer, they can do termite, they can do chimney, they can do foundation, everything, whatever it is. It's during these 7 days that they have. If they have to go to the city to check, let's say the buyer is buying this because they want to tear it down or build, there's a house, they want to build an ADU. During these 7 days, they need to contact the city that they're buying this property at, give the address and see if they can go ahead and do an ADU there. What about if the buyer wants to add a second floor? They need to go to the city and check to see if in this area they can add a second story to their house, because if they add a second story and it blocks the view on the hillside, it blocks the view of the house behind them. Maybe there's a neighborhood association law which will prevent it from them. They really have to do their due diligence during this time. And you need to guide them and tell them that please go ahead and do it, because you do not want to be the responsible party for not telling them all the due diligence that they have to do. Believe me, if the buyers buy something and then they find out that they can't do one thing, the first person they're gonna come after is you, right? So you cover your bases, guys. It's an obligation and duty, but more than anything else, you need to protect yourself legally by telling or writing them what they have to do. And you have to tell them, go to the city, find out who the neighborhood, if there's a neighborhood association. Okay,
So what's the department?
Do they have to go?
you-
probably zoning or planning.
Mm.
That I can only tell them, go to planning and they will guide you to, lead you to the direct department. I see some people put buyer and seller. No, it's only buyer. If there's anything else, you put it in here. Seller shall pay for smoke alarm and carbon monoxide device installation and water heater bracing if required by law. Well, it is required, so seller will have to do it. Seller shall provide buyer written statement of compliance in accordance with state that it's in and local law unless seller is exempt. Now, I had an offer come in on one of the listings that buyer said, oh, I'm okay. Buyer removes the retrofitting and compliance to be done by the seller. Well, they can't. Even if both buyer and seller agree that they don't want compliance or 9A report and whatever, if it is requirement by the state or by the local government, escrow will not close the transaction without the retrofit or compliance. So make sure you understand that and you explain it, especially to the investor clients. Buyer and seller shall pay for cost of compliance with any minimum mandatory government inspection and reports if required as a condition of closing escrow under any law. It doesn't say under buyer and seller agreement. Keep in mind and remind me to ask the escrow officer next week or the week after as to what we have to do in here. Seller shall pay for cost of compliance again. This is the 9A report, okay, that we're talking about. One more thing, I think I will go to item number 8 and we'll stop there. Buyer and seller shall pay. So what do you think will go in here? Quickly, because we're running out of time. So tell me, what shall I do in here?
Both of them.
Whoa.
Both.
Okay, so both. What shall I write here? You have written it, guys.
Yeah, each of them pay their own fees.
Each party to pay their own respective fees. This is the sentence I use, okay? It doesn't mean that's the law or because the reason why I chose to write this is because buyer's escrow fee might be different from the seller's escrow fee. And some people write 50-50. I don't think it's 50-50. I think they each have their own fee. That's why I chose to write this, okay? Escrow holder shall be who?
Seller.
You can write seller's choice or the escrow company of your choice. Let's say I work with Wonderland, I will write or Wonderland escrow or Glenox escrow or whatever we want to write there. Or we will not write anything, we'll just write seller's choice, okay? What am I going to write in C2? It says buyer and seller shall pay for owner's title insurance. What shall I do in here? Which one do I check mark?
Seller.
Okay. What do I write in here? Because it covers more protection. What do I write here? Come on, guys, you've done it. You've written offers.
Oh, owner's type of policy to be issued by, the one we use, lawyer's title.
No, seller's
Seller's
choice.
Oh,
choice.
seller's choice.
Or title company of your choice. I'm writing this, I'm not saying you write title company of your choice. It's your choice, understand? Is it lawyer's title, Fidelity, Old Republic, whatever one that you work with? You will write here. Okay, other costs. I think I'm just gonna go over here. Okay. I think that's enough for today because it's already 10:28. and we
Just, I
to
have a
be done.
question about the 9A.
Yes,
So the last offer that I wrote, the listing agent was asking me that the seller wants you to remove that one.
I doubt it. I'm not, I don't think they can.
Hmm.
If it's the city of Los Angeles, they cannot ask that to be removed because who will be responsible if you close escrow and then there is a lien by the city on this property? Who is responsible for that?
Yeah.
Buyer. Will the buyer be willing to take that, or the buyer will come back and say, well, did you explain to me that if I remove this, I will not be able, I will be charged for this lien? What about if it's a big lien?
Or mechanical.
Well, mechanical lien is not part of 9A.
So
9A
9A.
is everything about the city putting a lien on a property.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay, and the escrow will not close, I think. Good question for the escrow. Guys, please write these questions. So when the escrow company is here, you can ask these questions. Okay?
Okay.
Anything else? Any other question? And you know what? I think this did not record.
Sorry, I'm a little confused with what were you saying? 9A is the one that says closing in possession, that area?
Yes, here.
9A, where?
Buyer shall be provided, seller shall pay for the cost of compliance with any other minimum mandatory government and retrofit standard required as a condition of closing escrow under any law, whether the work is required to be completed before or after close of escrow.
Right.
Buyer shall be provided within the time specified in paragraph 14A, a copy of any required government conducted or point of sale inspection report prepared pursuant to this agreement or in anticipation the sale of property. Those are the 9A report and compliance report.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. Okay.
Okay. So can you please go through rest of this contract and become familiar with it? We will cover it next week. But I want you to be familiar, very familiar. You are already a few months into your real estate. By now, you're writing offers. And for you not to be familiar with these contracts is not acceptable, guys. Like I said before, when you go and you become a surgeon, can you imagine if the surgeon, you are the patient on the table, the surgeon comes in the room and the surgeon does not know what each tool is going to be used for? Would you like to be that patient?
No.
Would you like to be the buyer who is being represented by an agent who is not even familiar with the most important document to protect them? Would you be comfortable if you knew that agent that you're working with is on that level?
Right.
You will not. I will not. You have me. You have your mentors. But it's up to you. We cannot learn for you guys. I'm begging you. I'm asking you. I'm asking for your commitment. And this will be the last time I'm asking this, because after this, even though I will review your purchase contracts, it will not be acceptable to see a contract which is, excuse my language, written half-assly. Because you know that. I understand you will be nervous, and I will review it if I have to review 10 times. But it should have been done properly, because it also reflects the listing agent perception of you will be based on this offer. When I get an offer, I've told you this before, when I get an offer that is written half-assly, I already know in my mind, I do not want to work with this agent, because I will be the one who will be taking care of it. And whether I like it or not, 50% of control is in her hand or his hand. And I just don't want to do it. So if I have to ask, and I will share that with my sellers. I will say, look at the way this offer is written. It reflects what kind of agent we are going to be dealing with. And look at this one offer, which has been written properly. That means that this agent knows what he or she is doing. And you are not there to protect yourself. And like that, your offer will be taken off the table. I don't know how else to just bring it to your attention. That's what's going to happen. Okay. Anything else before we say bye?
Thank you.
All right. Love you guys.
Thank
Love
you.
you. Thank you.
Unfair share of the market.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Damn record.